and welcome to Murta Tries to Explain Magazines far too late into the night, but actually it's morning now. It's 6 a.m. Normal people are awake right now. I am recording a YouTube episode. But as I have reviewed the previous Hellebore parts, I've decided I should probably review these ones as well. I kind of do want to talk about them a little bit, though maybe not as in-depth as I did for the previous parts, mostly because it went in on one ear and it left through the other, as I was enjoying my reading, but it wasn't super memorable. I gotta say that there's something about the spring episodes that just really do not gel with me. And while I did really enjoy the winter episode, I am perpetually cold right now because it's like 6 degrees outside. That is in Celsius, not in Fahrenheit, for our friends that probably kinda got terrified for a second. I don't know what that would be in Fahrenheit. Yuletide issue 4. This picture I enjoyed a lot more than the spring episode issue 5, I gotta say, because it is very, very thematically consistent, and it is a very, very long issue, 88 pages. It talks mostly about winter stuff and stories and the sacrifice of Santa Claus. What did I even highlight in here? Because yes, I do highlight in books. I am gonna receive some really, really ancient books soon, and I won't be able to do that with those unless, of course, we want those books to return to somebody else's hands when I die in a lot worse condition that they entered mine, which would probably make it interesting, as they would probably have questions about the owner of the book. I might just put in an inscription of property of sigil when I receive them, honestly. Let's see, what did I highlight? Because whenever I find interesting passages, I do highlight them. On December 24th, 1951, a 3-meter-high effigy of Santa Claus was tied to the gates of Dijon Cathedral and set fire in front of a crowd that included at least 200 children. The clergy of the city claimed responsibility, calling Father Christmas an usurper and heretic who had installed himself like cuckoo in the nest, claiming more and more space for himself. Oh god, okay, Yuletide issue was definitely a great one. Except maybe for the weird insert of best places to watch the shortest Sunday of the year pages, which is honestly nice geography. Hellebore people are releasing just a book of English places that's gonna be like 400 pages, 300 pages long or something like that. And I am completely gonna go and get it because I am planning on traveling around England at some point, and it would be nice to have places to visit, but hopefully not like somebody's home that is like inhabited and shit, because that is private property and kind of creepy when people just like go and gawk at where other people live. That's don't do that. Don't do that. Ooh. What did I highlight here? What is this about even? Oh yeah, that was about a horned figure that ended up being very much an English thing. Then there was a whole bunch of stories connected to a single church and how ghost hunters kept on invading that property. See guys, just don't invade private property, bad idea. And because of that, they had to leave the property to slowly decay and fall apart, because otherwise they would have to put out guards, as a whole bunch of obnoxious people would just go there repeatedly in order to film and film and film. Then there's entry on Arctic shamans, which is honestly very, very interesting. I do appreciate spirituality. I love spirituality. A talk about 3 mothers that kind of got buried. That's a bit of a pagan thing. Christians, when they came to UK, apparently repurposed already existing churches because it was easier than building their own. So a whole bunch of memorabilia still survive, despite the fact that it should be erased. We just don't know how it connects to anything else. There's also ghost stories. There's talks about how ghost and children's stories became intertwined and how tales of Brothers Grimm were never meant for children but got landed in the hands of children. And honestly, I'm so confused about Brothers Grimm thing because I had a rendition of Cinderella that wasn't Brothers Grimm one and it wasn't Disney one. And it was translated from French when I was a child. It wasn't translated from French when I was a child, but the book that we had was translated from French, and it was like early 20th century, and that story was like Brothers Grimm, except without the cutting off the heel bits, but also without like the mice and the pumpkins, and it's a lot less magic-y, if anything. And I remember that rendition really fondly, and I remember having the Brothers Grimm volume and finding all of those stories too macabre for my taste. But it's not like even because I was just like a child and I was scared of them. It's more the same kind of gut reaction that I have to movies like The Saw, where you're like, oh, you are being violent and bloody for the sake of being violent and bloody. You could have wrote the story without all of this, you edgelord. Interesting coming from me, but I like my violence to have a point, I guess, when it comes to literary words. When it comes to books and movies, there we go. And Brothers Grimm stories felt like there was a lot more gore than there needed to be. And even child me had the same opinion, which is very interesting. So, anyways, Yuletide, good consistency, easy to read. I was very interested in the text. The only issue is that I am freezing, and this book is frankly about the cold period. So reading something cold when you're cold is kind of just doubles up the cold. So if you need a personal cooler, pick up this book and inhale the vibes. I am absolutely sure that it will work. I am gonna rank it just below issue 3, maybe not really on par, but just below issue 3, above issue 1, and definitely above issue 2. Very consistent, interesting occult information, a look at traditions that you normally wouldn't look at. The stones or locations are a bit random, but I can live with that. Very long issue, especially considering that the first issue was 60 pages. We're now at 88. And issue 5 continues that consistency of pages being at 88. And it's the Unearthing issue, and the Unearthing issue focuses all about archaeology and what is hidden behind the earth. And this is where my problem comes in. It's once again a spring issue, and a lot of this is just this guy did this thing in the Victorian era, and that's not what they were trying to frame. They would be like, oh, and this whole time of change and unrest in the scientific community and all of these new developments, they just put people into this different kind of mindset, which is the time being the abyss, and that's where Lovecraft and so on and so forth got inspiration. But it honestly just reads like a little bit of history of like, hey, this dude, he went ahead and figured out that Earth is not 6,000 years old. Yay for the dude. And we have mentions like that multiple times in the book. So I suppose it veers off being occult. And when it veers off being occult, I lose interest. I do like other things. There's an awesome guy that makes awesome animal videos on YouTube, honestly. I like listening to people talk about Victorian fashion. I like their imagination. I find the Industrial Revolution to be frankly absolutely horrified. And yes, not everything of their mentality we would ever want to adapt, but I do like history, but not in this context. I think that's what really didn't work with me, that the fact that it is in this specific context. And if you're gonna be talking history, I feel like history really needs longer to be longer than just, oh, this person went here and did a thing. Because it doesn't register well with me, all of that. There was a very, very interesting article in About the Middle, which is the Hexham Mystery, which is about the fact that they found 2 heads in Hexham. And at first they thought that it was maybe from Iron Age, and then there was rumors that some dude just made it and then held it in their backyard, and then they found it later. But it's a whole bunch of people having these weird experiences with these heads, and them just becoming like this popular media icon. And this is precisely the kind of weirdness that I'm not gonna find in a regular history book, and the kind of thing that I actually want to hear about. Robbins took possession of the Hexham heads in 1977. By that time, he notes the heads have been languishing in a drawer at Southampton University for over 2 years, though it is unclear how they ended up back in Southampton for a second time after the Robson family collected them in 1975. And then they exchanged owners again because this guy was trying to prove that stone has an engraved memory and he couldn't, so he gave it to Frank Hyde. Robbins describes Frank Hyde as someone well known on the fringes of the Fortean scene in London at the time. He seems to have been an esoteric polymath, being a psychic, a dowser, an astronomer, depending on who you believe. And the fact that this is 1970s and somebody's introducing themselves as an astronomer is absolutely fascinating to me, because it's 2021 right now, and I'm introducing myself as a Luciferian witch, and you can't take that away from me. The last that was heard was that Hyde had a bad car crash, and then the trail went as cold as stone or cement, depending on your preference. The debate has moved on from were they really Iron Age to who cares how old they were. They were weird, and that is precisely what I honestly want in my occult mag. Please give me more really niche icons that a foreigner would have never heard about, because I am a foreigner and I never heard about these 2 heads, 2 little stone statue heads that made such rounds in UK's niche occult community in 1970s, and probably a lot other people, because they were like talked about in TV and shit. I'm sorry, my brain, I can read stuff and I am a smart person, but sometimes I can't form sentences. Then we had previously an article about the Witches of Florence, which from the name you would think would be very, very interesting, but it ends up being of this dude befriended this woman who was a witch, therefore she was a good woman to extract information from other witches, and they both went to Florence and did a thing, and then they wrote about a lot of things in Florence, and that is that. So just like with the other unearthing things in this issue, with like the other more archaeology focused entries, it's more like this person went and did this thing, and it's like, great, I would like to hear more about the thing and less about the person, honestly, because the thing is the one that is interesting to me. About the fact that the person went there and did that, I can read that somewhere else. There's a story about a cursed field, which was alright, not very memorable, but alright. And that was simply about how a field got cursed and then nobody would actually plant anything in it, because if your family used that field, they died. They died. And death is a bad thing when you want to be alive. Not like not at any other points, but you know, when you wanna be alive, that's when death is bad. Death isn't bad in general, because if we all lived for forever while still decaying, that would be a living nightmare, and that is a kind of situation that has been explored in media before, and I find it fascinating. And I agree. Then there's like articles linking psychology and unearthing things from your own psyche together with the unearthing of earth artifacts. And honestly, there is far too many people digging into their own traumas right now. Well, I just considered traumas to be life. Don't question me, I'm from Eastern Europe. We have a pretty bad upbringing, okay? So, when everybody is going around talking about how traumatized it is, that's almost a trigger for me. As once again, I just consider it life. There is even a person currently sitting in my Twitter DMs as they're trying to get a parrot read on me, and honestly failing. And they're coming out with, wow, you have had such a difficult life. You must definitely work with your shadow and investigate all of the problems that it brought to you. And it's like, none. At this point, none. You know why? Because I did not even consider these to be trauma. I considered this to be life. It didn't leave me traumatized. I'm not here sitting PTSD just because I had major surgeries. That's not how it works. I'm fairly okay with pain, and I'm fairly okay with surgery, and I'm fairly okay with death, honestly. So whenever there's a more leaning towards talking about trauma and stuff, my brain just switches off, which might be another reason why I not consider this issue to be that great. Its opening article, though, the realm of ancient terrors, that was actually really interesting for me. In the medieval Christian world, those who died without revealing the location of hoarded treasure were guilty of avarice, one of the 7 deadly sins. Their ghosts would be searching for redemption, guiding treasure hunters to their hidden wealth. Discovery of the treasure was their path to heaven. In this way, treasure hunting could be regarded as a good deed, as it would allow souls stuck in purgatory to finally reach the glory of heaven. And because of this issue being more historical and being more about the topics that I don't necessarily care about, and once again, it's not that I dislike history, it's that I don't think that this is the right format to explore it necessarily. I would rank issue 5 just barely above the issue 2, but that's because issue 2 was really hard to read and because it was very, very disjointed. This one is, honestly, they really improved past issue 2. This one's not disjointed at all. It's just ranks low on the occult scale, which is quite specifically very important to me. So now, from worst to best would be issue 2, followed by issue 5, followed by issue 1, followed by issue 4, followed by issue 3. And I still have issue 6. And they are releasing a location book this winter, December, and I will probably be getting it. But also, I am receiving The Last Devil, the book from 1927 this Friday, and I can't wait. I will probably be reviewing a book that's almost turning 100, and it's one of the first releases. And I want it on auction in eBay for 1/6 of its normal price, because its normal price is not something that I could afford, cookies. I am very excited to start my own ancient book collection, alright? So, whenever you're gonna hear book reviews from me, expect them to be extra old and very hard to ever find on sale. Probably. So look forward to that. I am gonna get to issue 6 whenever I have some free time, for this is what I enjoy doing, even though if this is not precisely what you enjoy getting out of my channel. But hey, some of my occult shit kind of picking up steam, kind of getting views. People kind of liked it. I have another topic for conversation later this week. So thank you for watching my reviews, and I hope I am gonna see you the next time. Toodaloo.